So it's so great to be with you today, Suzanne. I'm just so excited for us to have this conversation, just to talk about what we do and why we do it. My name is Darlene Adams. I'm a Canadian living in Morocco. Suzanne?
And I'm Suzanne, and I'm currently living in the UK in England. And nice to be here. And so excited to be having this conversation with you. We've spoken about having this conversation for such a long time now that it's great that we're now doing it. And hopefully, your audience and my audience will get a benefit and see what we both have to offer and be able to have some takeaways from what you do and from what I do.
Yeah. So let's just talk about that. Like, so what is it? What is it that you do? What do you call yourself?
So when I started, I qualified as in counseling, and then I discovered everybody was going crazy about hypnotherapy. And in doing a hypnotherapy course, I discovered an alternative method called EFT, emotional freedom technique, which deals with people's emotions. And initially, I clarified myself as a therapist, but because I was dealing with alternative therapies here in the UK, people are quite dismissive, and there's not a very strong, at the time when I started about 10, 12 years ago, there wasn't a very strong following from people in terms of taking alternative therapy seriously. But over time, and now having learned what I have and having a combination of therapies that I use, yes, they are therapies, but what I do is I coach. I don't tell people what to do. I help them to find the deeper causes behind their issues and their problems. I don't believe in just dealing with symptoms. I go for the root cause. That's my tagline. Uproot the root cause and get long-term changes in your life, because we have the ability to do that. So why mess about and waste time with just the symptoms when we can deal with the root cause?
Wow. So you're a facilitator of life change. You facilitate people's changes in their lives towards making a better life for themselves.
Yeah, predominantly for women, because that's what my story is. So
Yeah.
I'm drawing very heavily on what I went through. I got married very young, and I went and lived in Africa in a white commercial farming community. And back then in the early 80s, it was still very male orientated, and they still had very fixed ideas what was expected of a woman and a wife. And I just didn't fit that mold. I
Right.
never have. I never
There's a
have. I've
lot of
always,
women probably can relate. There's probably a lot of women out there who can
well,
totally
this
relate
is
to
it.
that. I mean, it's a very common narrative these days. I mean, not even these
It
days,
is.
forever,
And
but
unfortunate,
people are
yeah.
people
And
are being empowered.
unfortunately, it,
Sorry.
yeah, which is great. Now they are. Because I was just going to say, unfortunately, back then, it's not that women weren't allowed to be heard, but women weren't happy, but we're conditioned that this is what's expected of us as a woman. You get married, you have kids, you look after the house, you do the meals,
Yeah.
you look after your husband. But to start with, my marriage wasn't like that, because somebody forgot to give my husband the memo that he was supposed to support his family. So I was in, and this is what I mean. My niche, the people I work with, are high achieving women. But I
Right.
actually wonder, like myself, how many women actually set out thinking, I want to be a high achieving woman? I don't believe they do. I think circumstances lead them to become a high achieving woman. And that can put a lot of pressure on a person, because it's not something you are aiming for. It's something that evolves, and you one day wake up and find you're living that life. You're holding everybody together. You're making everything work. You're the glue that makes all the cogs keep
Mm.
turning. A lot of women don't have the support, they don't have the recognition for what they do, and they just reach a stage where they decide, who am I? What am I doing? I've lost sight of who I am, and I'm barely coping. And
Wow.
on the outside, they look like these very competent women who are coping, when inside they're just screaming for help and support.
Wow. Wow. I think that there's, yeah, probably a lot of women out there that can totally relate to that. that
I think
feeling.
that would probably, you could probably relate to that in terms of what you do as well. You know, mom's home teaching. That's a massive thing. I mean, I was homeschooled for about 15 months, and I know for a fact that I was hardly ever in the schoolroom. That's for sure. You know, the minute I heard anything, I was out the door and gone. And my mother wasn't very good at coping. It's like, oh, well, never mind, you know. So
I'm sure you're outside
that's
learning something.
Oh yeah,
So,
I was learning something, but yes, not what I needed to be
yeah.
learning at the time.
Yeah, so definitely I support homeschool moms because, but just because don't believe that mainstream education is the best for kids. And
Yeah,
I spent a lot of time in a lot of classrooms wondering why I didn't feel like I really wanted to do the best for kids. And then when I get put in a situation where the environment is just not the right environment. And so I have always done my best for the kids in my charge in the environments that I was, but it wasn't for a long time that I realized it's the environment that's the problem. And so
right.
until the environment changes in typical schools where you have just schoolrooms, like the schoolrooms that I've been to, like I've worked in Korea, in Oman, in
Wow.
UAE, in Ghana, and now in Morocco. And I've seen a lot of schoolrooms. And I grew up in Canada, so I know what those schoolrooms look like. And when you're thinking about rows of desks and cement walls,
Yeah.
it's so confining, it's so restrictive. And now we're in 2026 where there are so many options for people. And so, like you were saying, that the women who are homeschooling, there's a lot of pressure put on them
Pressure.
to really
Exactly.
be everything now. So now like they're the teacher plus all of this that you've also said. And so we really need to, that's what really connected me to Suzanne, is that our passions are really to support women
Women.
who
Exactly.
they want to do a lot, they have goals and dreams, but then life puts so much pressure on them that they don't know how to get release. And
And
so,
they lose themselves because they get so
yeah,
wrapped up in everybody else's life. And as I say, being the glue that makes so that everybody else's life flows and is seamless,
yeah,
but then you lose sight. And I think I didn't have such a who am I was more a case of I had reached breaking point because so much was expected of me. In fact, my crisis point was when I was told I would have to take my daughters out of school because I couldn't afford to pay the school fees. And I
mm,
just thought, this is ridiculous. My daughters didn't ask to be born. I am their mom. I'm responsible to make sure they at least get a good education because, again, talk about being homeschooled and never being in the classroom. But because I traveled a lot growing up, I went from English schooling to American schooling to homeschooling to American schooling. And I fell through the gaps. I don't think I ever did physics or chemistry because I was in English schooling and they hadn't done it. And then when they were about to do it, I moved to American schooling and they'd already done it and I didn't have a clue what they were doing, you
yeah,
know? So again, it was really, really important for me that my daughters had decent schooling and
right,
they got through their schooling without a problem. So yeah, as a homeschooling mom, I think there's massive pressure on the parents because I'm sure the dads get involved to a point as well,
yeah,
because at the end of the day, if your child gets into his late teens or 20s and he can't write or he can't add up or do his maths and things like that, and you homeschooled him, although I do think that even if you homeschool, you do have support, don't you, from the schooling body that supports homeschooling.
in all the different places, there's different laws, there's different ways, there's different,
Yeah.
like homeschooling is actually just blowing up now, pretty much across the
Okay.
world. Like with 2020 and all of these kids at home,
Right. COVID.
they were
Yes.
forced almost into this homeschooling type of atmosphere.
Environment.
And so
Yeah.
then there are these parents that are like, oh, I can do this, or the fact that so many jobs have gone online, and the world is just such a different place since 2020 that people are seeing that there's so many more options that they can make different choices. And what I wanted to say about the coaching program that I do, that's why some of the issues that you're talking about, I start with the mom and who she is as an educator, what is the plan that she has, or like the expectations she has for her children, and
Mm-hmm.
what are the values of the family, and what is the lifestyle that they want to live, and like take a look at who she is as a whole, and like get that picture so that she feels like that this is her choice and this is what she
Yeah.
wants to do.
So
But then also, what is her full role? Like her role can't be, I'm the 24/7 teacher. It's like
yeah.
helping her to prioritize different parts of her day to make sure that she's prioritized and what she wants to do. And then we talked, like you and I talked earlier, about that there are options, that lots of homeschool moms are starting their own home businesses, and
Yeah. Yeah.
they're taking
Exactly.
on some of the responsibility of the finances, because two
Yeah.
income
So
homes
so
are like almost necessary.
So,
Um,
Darlene, would you say that what your offer is that you help moms who are not even necessarily homeschooling yet, they're considering it, and you help them put together a blueprint
so
to show them what is possible, given that if they give you all the information of what makes up their day, you're able to work out a workable plan that can
yeah,
include them being a homeschool mom as well.
yeah, exactly. That's exactly right.
Yeah,
So
that's amazing.
So, and it's really, so the other part of it is you figure out, as a homeschool mom or like any mom, you just figure out like who you are and what your educational expectations are. And like even going back to how you were educated, what was good about it, what you didn't like about it, and just be conscious about those things and how it's affecting how you're educating your kids now. And then after you've got that picture, and I stated it in my little resource, that you actually write out a philosophy of teaching statement, just to sort of
Okay.
give yourself a picture of who you
Yeah.
are as the parent. And then you do the sort of analysis with your kids as well. Like, who are my kids as learners? What are their learning styles? What are their interests? And then you do some kind of alignment and comparison to see where maybe, oh, my expectations are too much in this area, or I need to readjust for this kid because his learning style is like this. There's just so many things to think. And parents who, if you didn't study education, if you don't know everything that you need to think about before you're just like, oh, yeah, I can teach my kid. Like, let's teach him to read. And then
Yeah.
you're like,
Yeah,
what
it
is
can be a
reading
bit
all about?
daunting, I
Like,
think.
I can read, so I can teach my kid to read. Well, yes, you can.
Well,
But there are smoother ways of doing it and rougher ways. And so, like, it's all about. And so, I also like just give tools and strategies for learning different concepts. Like, just I'm the person in your corner to just really
yeah,
help you to build the process and make it the most excellent. And then the third step in that step was just building the connection between the kids and the parents, because really that's, kids don't care about learning math or learning reading. They care about being connected to people. Like, they're not just
exactly.
there like, oh, I'm going to read so that I can learn how to put
Yeah,
together this table, if it's like an instruction, whatever. They don't care about that. But if you say like, hey, let's read this instruction manual so we can put this table together, they're going to be all over that. I get to put a table together with my mom or my dad. And
this
then,
is it.
I have to like, and so it's building the connection, and it's building that, and it's really finding those connection pieces to really have a smooth education. But
Yeah,
if the mom is there feeling like overwhelmed or stressed
well,
out and like feeling like a failure, all of those things, that's not helpful. And so then that's where somebody like you comes in to just
I
help.
was just going to say, with just you talking through what is involved in being a homeschool parent, a homeschooling parent, the issue that the average person has is that they grow up with beliefs about themselves.
Exactly.
And I'm sure there's a lot of parents out there who think that homeschooling would be absolutely brilliant, but because of their own lack of self-esteem
Mhm.
and belief in themselves, they think, oh, but I'm not the right person to school my own kids, even though I'd love to do that. You
Yeah.
know, yes, that's, as I say, that's, as they say, my secret sauce. And that I really love helping people find those negative beliefs that they have about themselves. And what I do is we look at the emotions attached to those beliefs, because those beliefs came from, when you think, when we're born into an environment of other people's beliefs. We've
Right,
got our
exactly.
parents, we've got our grandparents, we've got teachers, we've got people in authority. Even some people have older siblings who already have beliefs. And it's like, don't do that. And it's like, why? Because this is what my belief is. You shouldn't do this and you should be doing that, you know? So we don't always realize the beliefs we take on board.
Yeah.
And this is where one thing I've learned, in fact, my friend brought her little grandson over, and he's only 2. And it is incredible. Now, as an adult, I realized it with my own kids, but even more so again now, how clever that little kid at just 2.5 already was. And I think adults underestimate their children.
Absolutely.
And when you make a comment about, don't do that, you're always naughty and you're useless, and I don't know why I ever had you, and you'll never be good enough, and all those things that we shout when we get angry or we're frustrated or overwhelmed. And our children are like sponges. They just soak that all up.
Yeah.
And they internalize that. And it's only when we get older and we're trying to be a homeschool mom and we're thinking, but I'm not good enough. I'm going to ruin my kids. And it's those emotions.
And then you also repeat the patterns.
Yeah, over and over.
That's why it's also important to be like thinking like, how was I educated, and how is this coming out in how I educate my kids? And then,
exactly.
And how can I change those belief patterns?
And most people can't do that. Most people don't hear themselves. They don't realize what's driving. Yeah, they don't realize what's driving their thoughts and their actions.
Yeah.
You know, it's that belief system. When did somebody ever ask you, oh, Darlene, what are your beliefs? You know, not political or religious, just basic beliefs about what you believe about yourself.
Yeah.
You know, nobody ever asks us that question.
Right.
And that's why I love what I'm doing, because when I start asking questions, when I'm working with somebody and I start asking them those questions, it's like the sun breaks through those clouds, because all of a sudden they can connect with something that they have control over and they can change.
Yeah.
You know, gone are the days where and you can't teach an old dog new tricks. On the contrary, they've proven that our brain grows and shrinks throughout our life. We have the ability to keep learning throughout our life and helping somebody get over those negative beliefs that are holding them back so that they can become a homeschooling parent. It would just be, I think, amazing for everybody to be able to achieve that if that's what they really want.
Yeah. And even if they didn't want it, and like necessarily because of these beliefs or whatever, and then they were pushed into it, or there's so much going on. Like I'm in a lot of homeschool groups and I read what the parents are writing about, like so many of them. I feel like I'm failing my child. I should just put my child back in. I'm yelling at my child too much. I'm like, the connection is getting broken. I'm ruining their lives. Like so many things. Oh, my kid is not reading. That must be my fault. Like there's so many things, and a lot of that they just need to be taught. They need, and that's why they're in the homeschooling groups. But I really believe that like the personal touch, like really just being able to have somebody sit down and listen to them and give them a bit of feedback or on a direction which they could think to really overcome would be really, really helpful for them. And what I wanted to say is that my belief is that I believe in God. God gave each person their child, right? Like it's a very precious gift that you've been given, and God believes in you to raise your child and to educate your child and to be all of that for your child. And you don't need to farm that out. Like sometimes, like our society has taught us that no, all kids have to go to school. No, all kids should have an education.
Yes.
You are the best person for that job. You know your child the most, and you love your child the most, and you are going to do your utmost to provide everything. And like in some circumstances, whatever, maybe the best is a school. But I believe that there's so much more that can be done, so much more learning, like deep learning that can be done in a home environment, or like nowadays you have nature schooling and world schooling. And the biggest thing that I think is so funny that people have against homeschooling, how will your kids get socialized? And I'm like, how did kids socialize before they ever went to school? Like, it's not like schools have been around for thousands of years. I mean, they kind of have, but not in the same way we think of it. Like, kids haven't been going to school for that long, but kids have been socialized. Like, there's lots of social groups that people can belong to that.
And even after school clubs, they're not, the clubs are after school clubs. They're not part of school. So you can still school your kids at home and then say, right, you're off to baseball club, you're off to running club, you're off to tennis club, you know?
Exactly. Like what, and these days you're off to like entrepreneur club and you're off to coding club, like whatever your kid's interest is, like you can,
there's a club.
Whereas in a school, it's confined to, oh, well, we can only offer 10 things. But the world offers like so much more. And
this is it.
It's even just going to be even more and more. As more homeschoolers, people decide to homeschool, the more there's going to be available for them as well. So yeah, I mean, like, of course, I'm all for homeschooling. It's like I said, like I was feeling so like I'm doing these kids a disservice by being in the classroom with them. It's like comes to the point where if you're not part of the solution, then you're part of the problem. So I needed to really find a way to be solution oriented. Now, there are a lot of schools these days, I don't know about a lot, percentage wise, maybe 1 or 2% of schools that are really changing to alternative ways and building child led learning centers where they have facilitators instead of teachers and stuff. And I feel like all of those are great initiatives. And for me, what I want to do is go to Ghana and go to my husband's village and just really build the relationships there and develop an education system for them, but not me. Help them think through what are their values, what is their lifestyle, what do they want their kids to be, and let's develop a plan that really fulfills that. Because right now they have these education systems that teach kids to go abroad, that the only place that you can be successful is the UK or Canada or America or Australia or whatever, like outside of Ghana. But I want them to really feel that Ghana is the place that they can get their education and they can grow up and they can live these valuable lives without feeling like they've lost out on anything. Because I just think of my high school. Most of my classmates are still living in the same town where we grew up. And essentially it was like a small village. And they're living like successful, happy lives. But I think like in a place in the village, it seems like in the village, there are people that want to stay in the village. But most people, they feel that they're not successful unless they've left the village.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, again, that's old. What's it called? It's the old way of doing things, isn't it? Because the village didn't have anything to offer. You know, if it's anything like the villages in Zambia, which were slightly south of Ghana, they have to go out the village to get educated, especially senior school. Normally there was a junior school somewhere nearby, but for senior schooling and further education, they had to go into the cities, into the towns, or if they could afford it, outside the country. So very much so. But nowadays, as you say, just like here, where people are wanting to homeschool since 2020, in some ways they have better internet connections out there sometimes than what we have in Western worlds, you know?
Yeah.
So again, as you say, it's a different world today, and they can be homeschooled or schooled within their village and still be able to have a business or sport. And that's actually taking us back, isn't it? Where the children and the grandchildren stay within the village and look after the elders as they get older.
Yeah. And I would just love to see. And so the comparison between homeschooling, I just feel like it just maps so well to the community in a village in Ghana, for example.
Yeah.
Like you have this community that's educating the kids. And like when you're homeschooling, that's what you do. Like maybe whatever your church group or the homeschooling kids in your neighborhood, you build a community of like-minded people that are going to support each other and support the kids and raise the kids towards specific goals that you have set for the kids to help them to feel proud of themselves and to feel successful when they grow up. And so that's just the way I'm connecting my Western way of doing things to Africa. I mean, I live in Africa and my heart is for Africa, but I'm also from Canada and have that piece as well.
So I think if anybody has questions, then what can they do? You've got a resource as well, I believe, that you offer for free that people can download. And if they wanted to get in touch with you and find out more, if they're interested in homeschooling their children.
Yeah. So it's the 3 steps that I discussed earlier about. It's just a resource, and there's a little workbook if you're somebody who likes to print out a workbook and write out what you want.
So where can they find that?
And so what I think is that I will just put the link under the video when I post it so that
Okay.
you can just check that out. And then also for you, Suzanne, how can we
Yeah,
find?
I've got 3 steps to feeling back in control and calmer and in more control of your life again, which I think that's what a lot of women want when they reach that breaking point and they just feel that they can't cope another day and having to keep everything together because they themselves are falling apart. Although nobody would know that from the outside,
Yeah.
they just need that support and help. So my resource, my little PDF is about just taking that deep breath, giving yourself a bit of space and thinking about what thoughts you have, because it's your thoughts, as I said in the beginning, that our thoughts are so powerful. And we're the only ones who know what we're thinking, and we're the only ones who can change our thoughts. So if we're all very focused on negative thoughts and I can't do this and I'm not coping, and you're going down, you're spiraling, and you want to stop that. You want to stop it in its tracks. And when you take a deep breath, what you're doing is you're breaking that pattern of thinking because now you're focused on your breathing. People say, take a deep breath, hold it, exhale through your mouth, and all of a sudden you're thinking just about breathing. How am I breathing? And what it does is it breaks that pattern of thinking that where you're spiraling. So it's very short, it's 3 steps, but it just makes you come back to the here and now, because no matter what is going on in your life, you're going to have to wait for now, for the moment, in order to address it.
Right.
You can be thinking, what if, but what if is in the future. Yeah. And you can only deal with what if when it arrives in the now. And if you're thinking of the future, you're missing out on now. So in this moment, which is really key, in this moment, when you're spiraling, take a deep breath and just say, I'm okay, I'm safe. In this moment, I've got nothing to worry about.
Right.
This will sort itself out. If you're in a tense, panicky, anxious mindset, you're actually attracting more of that into your life other than not what you want. You want to feel calm. You want to feel in control. You want to just relax. You're not going to have that if you're in that mindset of being totally anxious, not knowing what if. Right. It's all about knowing how to calm down and get out of that pattern of thinking and feeling. And the techniques I use, I don't go into them a lot because that's not what I just want people to become aware of the thoughts they think. And likewise, I'm just tidying it up so that it makes sense. I don't want anybody going, oh my God, what's she talking about?
And listen, you have attached to that, you'll have a link to book a call with you as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the thing about the resource that you're providing and I'm providing. Yes. You can put your email and then you will get on our email list, which you can then reach out to us by email.
Yeah.
Or you can also follow that through, and there's a calendar link that if anybody wants to get a hold of myself or Suzanne, and for me, what I would do with you is actually go through the 3-step process to really ask you the questions that maybe that you haven't asked yourself, so that we can go through that process and really set you up for a plan. And then I can tell you a little bit more about what I do or whatever for Suzanne. In the book,
I was going to say, I offer exactly the same thing for what I do, is that you have a talk, and it's all very well to say to somebody, become aware of your thoughts and then take a deep breath and then think about what you want. But if you really want to get results and get to the root cause of your specific results, then again, that's where my call comes in, and I will sit and I will give somebody, just like you give a blueprint, I will give them a blueprint of what they need to do, what they want, because a lot of times we don't even know what we want. We just know we don't want this.
We have an idea that what we want is way over there. And then we're taking these steps that are leading over here and we're going, what? Yeah.
Exactly.
So it's just building that alignment. In both of our practices, we're just helping people to build alignment to get to where they actually want to be.
Yeah. Point them in the right direction and show them the steps that they need to take for their specific situation.
Yeah. So, and then give them some tools and some strategies along the way to help them independently move forward. Yeah,
because also with what I do is that we will always have challenges as we go through life. So if I can give them the tools to and show them how to use them now, those tools will benefit them no matter what challenge they fit going forward. They face, not fit, they face going forward.
Yeah, that's so cool.
So
Well,
this has
hey,
been
it's been
amazing,
absolute,
Darlene.
yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure. It's like always so good to talk to you. We always have so much fun and we laugh and it's just,
Indeed, we do.
and then we also have this Africa connection. So it always
Yeah,
is nice
yeah.
too.
I didn't really touch on that very much, but yeah, it's my hope as well in the next 18 months, if not sooner, to go back to Zambia, because having lived there for 27 years and I've got a daughter out there that I think I would love to be doing this and have my African background and you have your African background and we can do
Yeah,
it again when we're out there.
that would be so amazing. So all
Swaps
you out there, you can look forward to that for Suzanne and I to be in Africa together, showing off
in our respective countries.
respective
Yes.
countries, showing off our backgrounds. And we'll change, yeah,
Yeah.
we'll change our rooms to our actual real backgrounds. All right.
Anyways,
So thanks for joining, everybody. Take
thanks
care.
everybody.
And
Really enjoyed this.
yeah, take care. Bye. Navi.